I am broken too. All right. Let's get after it. How we doing tonight, friends? Hippie Mo is here. We got Josh Quinn Andrews. This is gonna be a good one tonight, man. It's always gonna be a good one when I get to hang out with you guys, though, for sure, without question. So yeah, man, we're back at it with the third lesson in the understanding your personality and how it legitimately affects every part of your life, your success, your happiness, all the things in life that you want to have happen uh, are going to go through the filter of your own unique personality. Right. So I think one of the ways I can be of greater service to each of you is to hip you to some of the tools that are out there to help you discover exactly what your personality is. Right. And I don't want to, let me retract that because I don't think there's an exact science to anything that has anything to do with personality. Okay. But the closer you can get to the goal, right? The closer you can get to ongoing, increasing, perpetual self knowledge, the more I think you set yourself up for success. And this is something that does not get taught to us. So forget about school. I'm not going to blame the school system. This is just something that should have been taught to us from the beginning. At a very early age, we should have had parents that knew how to evaluate personality, how to look for signs of our child is going to be fill in the blank, to start helping that child make optimal decisions for what their life is going to pan out to be. So, for example, I've talked about my sons. Oftentimes, they're very different guys. They all have a piece of me in them, but they all have their own unique parts, and that's mentally, that's emotionally, that's physically. My third child he got what seems like all of my athletic genes, right? So he picks up things when it comes to like me showing him how to throw a football or run pass routes or how to sprint properly, how to run properly. He can watch me do it and then copy it exactly without a whole. It just comes very natural to him, right? Science comes very naturally to my oldest. So I want to help you kind of lessen the learning curve here because this is stuff we should have been taught probably around the age of 12, 13, 14, and then we should have had continuing education on it going forward. And I need to turn off the PlayStation because it's going to cook us in this room that was very cool. So I can turn off my jet engine PlayStation here. But let's get a few administrative notes out of the way before we jump, neck high into the discussion tonight. As always, I welcome questions while I'm talking throughout the entire talk, okay? You don't have to wait for me to stop talking to ask your questions. I will go through and try to capture every comment that you all leave. So feel free to ask questions throughout the talk. I'll take periodic breaks as we go through to answer some of those questions for you all. And your question does not, and this is a rule that I always have every time I live stream, your question does not have to be directly related to the subject matter we are discussing. If you've got some burning desire thing that's going on in your life that I or someone else that's watching and listening to this may be able to assist you with, put it in the question, put it in the comment section, and I will do my best to either answer it or, I have a bunch of my teammates and community members will probably be here too, and they'll have perspective. And there may just be someone else watching that has a good perspective to share with you, right? So that's kind of that's the only rule I have. I have two rules, right, or three rules, right? Vegas rules. If someone shares something that's really personal here, even though it's in public space, let's keep it amongst ourselves and let's try to maintain some level of anonymity. It doesn't really apply on YouTube, but that's a rule that I have when I've either coached in person or facilitated large groups. Number two is mutual respect. Everybody show mutual respect. If you disagree with something I say, I welcome your disagreement because you probably have access to information and facts that I don't. Right? We just ask that any disagreement comes with respect. Even if I say something that kind of rubs you the wrong way, no, it's not intentional. And vice versa. Everyone just show each other mutual respect and everyone will get along great. Okay. And then kind of the third is that I want everyone to have the freedom to ask the questions that they want to ask, despite what I may be talking about here. Because you never know who's watching your shows, friends. I've had people come on streams throughout the years on the brink of suicide, all kinds of different things going on. Whatever's going on in your life, you need to ask a question about it, get it off your chest, do it. You know, if you feel comfortable doing that here, then do so. I will ask all of you to try to maintain some level of anonymity, unless your name is your username, like mine is. Don't give out personal information. I know a lot of young people aren't taught that by their parents. Like, don't come on here and say, "Hey, I'm from this neighborhood and this." Like, no, don't do that. But also, this live stream, unlike many of my live streams in the past, will not stay on YouTube indefinitely. Okay, this is actually, I am providing this to all of you for free, just because I think that's a good thing to do, but also just to kind of give you an idea of what it's like to be in one of my programs. This is actually the third lesson in a program that I created called Understanding Your Personality, which is a part of our Good Life Playbook coaching program, which we've kind of called it's like the Netflix of personal development, right? So there's content that's in there now, and then there's content that we're going to be adding over time. So if you want access to this after the fact, then you're going to need to join the Good Life Playbook. There are links in the description where you can do that. The price, people tend to ask about the price, is cheaper than your Netflix subscription. I made it like that on purpose, even though I would argue what's in there is probably worth 1,000 times that price. Okay, I'd argue that Netflix is probably worth 1,000 times its price too, on the entertainment side, right? So bottom line, definitely get at that. If you want to take the personality inventory that I have on screen, these are my latest results. I believe this is the last time I took the test. There's a link in the description for that as well. It's the Hexaco test. You can take the Hexaco test. You can join the Good Life Playbook. And if you want to be a part of supporting our mission here, you want to have skin in the game. You want to help us reach 1 billion people across the world, to help you understand your life's purpose, give you the tools to actually get after it, and help you take command of your life. If you want to be a part of that, then patreon.com/Brian Chambers link is in the description as well. I think it may be a bit.ly link, but definitely give that a look. No gift is too small, no gift is too big. All right. With all that out of the way, let's say hello to Josh Quinn. Let's say hello to Hippie Mo. Let's see who else is here. Chat out of the way here. Okay, we got quite a nice little audience here for a small YouTube channel such as mine. Let's see. So, understanding your personality. Tonight we're talking about the domain of extroversion, and as we've done pretty much, I think, every week that we've done this for the last 3 weeks, let's just read the definition. We don't need to make this any more complicated than it is. Extroversion. Now, before I read it, and you guys can see it here on screen, I'm excited to talk about this particular domain because more than anything in the world, I feel like extroversion is misunderstood, misrepresented, and misused. Right? There's this insecure air that floats around people who frequent personality inventories and personality tests, that extroverts are successful and introverts are, it's almost like being extroverted is good and being introverted is bad. And there's most of the people that follow me, at least the most vocal ones, are introverts, right? Or less extroverted, if you're going by the way this personality test explains it. And there's like this insecurity that they've been led to believe that the extroverts get the best jobs and they get the girls, and it's like, first of all, it's not true. The most prolific entrepreneur of all time is not very extroverted. I'm talking about Jeff Bezos. But bottom line, I want to dispel some of the myths and some of the misrepresentation about this extrovert versus introvert kind of stuff that I think the Myers-Briggs is ultimately responsible for. I like the way this test looks at it. It doesn't try to put you in either box, right? It just says, okay, you have a certain level of extroversion, and here are the things that we use to measure. These are the facets of your personality that we measure to determine how extroverted you are. Right? And as we get in, I always use my results kind of just as an example, right? So that you can kind of see yourself or see your opposite as I'm talking through me, so that you can start to use what I'm saying about me as an example to picture yourself, right? I'm going to help you understand that it doesn't matter if you're highly extroverted or not. There are pluses and minuses with both. And that goes for pretty much everything on this list. Right? Like I can even find something good about someone who has a higher anxiety than another person. Right? There are good things that come out of having a higher anxiety score and emotionality. And you're going to find the same is true with extroversion. What's up, Travis? What's up, Andrew? Good to see you guys, man. Let's see. Andrew says, hey, sir, I hope today has been better to you than me so far. Well, I can tell you based on how you sound, I'm going to say it was, but hopefully we can end the night on a positive note for both. Now then, extroversion. Persons with very high scores on the extroversion scale feel positively about themselves, right? Feel confident when leading or addressing groups of people. Enjoy social gatherings and interactions, and experience positive feelings of enthusiasm and energy, right? Conversely, persons with very low scores on this scale consider themselves unpopular, feel awkward when they are the center of social attention, are indifferent to social activities, and feel less lively and optimistic than others do. Now, that very much sounds like positive and negative, and I'm going to tell you that it's not necessarily. There are life circumstances and situations where either one of those could be positive or negative. And I talked about that a little bit in the first week about a group that I was asked to lead, and I completely butchered it because I conveyed all these things that are seen as positive. Right? I had all the confidence and all the charisma and all the enthusiasm. I got everybody fired up, but I was wrong. And so had someone with less extroversion who was probably not willing to speak up and put themselves out there because they have a lower social confidence. You're going to see one of the facets of social boldness. They should have challenged me. They were probably like, I don't want to challenge this guy. He probably sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I think he's wrong, but I don't want to look like the bad guy. Just let him go. I would have appreciated somebody challenging my ideas because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was improvising the best that I could. And that's the thing. And the funny thing is, the exercise that I was leading, it would have worked for me. I would have been successful, but a lot of my team would have failed. And in my philosophy, my belief system, if you will, if the leader is winning and the team is losing, the leader is losing. There's no end state where the leader won and everyone else lost, and you can consider him a winner. Unless you work for a very bureaucratic place. The only place I've ever seen leaders get really high marks when their teams get low marks is in very, very heavy bureaucracies, right, where the politics matter. All right, so persons with very high scores on the extroversion scale feel positively about themselves. But that doesn't mean if you're low that you necessarily feel negatively about yourself. And that's one of the keys with any personality inventory is you have to understand the detail and the nuance, right? It's not an either or statement. If you score, because you're going to find out when we go back up, there's parts of extroversion that I score low in or lower in, right? But I'm very, very positive about myself. Sometimes I'm not. Okay, so this isn't, you can feel positively and negatively about yourself in different circumstances. Right? So falling into the trap that, the extroverts are confident and they're confident when leading. I know plenty of not highly extroverted people that are supremely confident when they're leading. Why? Because they spend a lot of time building competence as leaders, right? So don't take these statements as exclusive statements. It's not intended to be that way. And I actually hope, um, I hope these guys, these authors, these PhDs see some of this work that we're doing and other people are doing in this space, and they update some of this language, because this does seem very exclusive, right? And they're like, even if like you're a Myers-Briggs person, there's this insecure belief with a lot of introverts that we extroverts are so confident and we think you're all just to be pitied. It's just not the truth. It's 100% not the truth, right? That we think being extroverted is positive and being introverted is negative. That's ridiculous. Um, they enjoy social gatherings. More on that in a minute, right? And feel a need for, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Going back to experience positive feelings of enthusiasm and energy sometimes, but it doesn't mean if you're less extroverted that you don't have that. It's just a correlation, okay? Conversely, persons with very low scores on this scale can consider themselves unpopular. I've seen a lot of that with people who are highly introverted, right, or less extroverted. Feel awkward when they are the center of social attention. An extroverted person can feel that. I don't like being the center of attention unless, like in a situation like this, I'm willing to be the center of attention because I have something of value to give to you all. Like, I don't like being the center of attention, like just in a social environment. I don't like all eyes on me, even as a near max extrovert, right? I don't like that. If I'm on stage or I'm performing, I don't mind being the center of attention, but it's because I have something to say that I think is important for the people who are listening. Okay? So there's that. Indifferent to social activities, more on that in a second. And they feel less lively and optimistic than others do. Okay, but that's not a statement of exclusivity, nor is that a comprehensive, all-inclusive statement. Just because you're less extroverted doesn't automatically mean that you're less lively or less optimistic than other people. Right? It could be that way, and understand that these descriptions are often talking about the extremes. Okay, what you're going to find is most people that take this test on the scale, they're going to lean to the left or to the right of center. Most people aren't going to be at the extremes. So a lot of this language here, and it didn't really make it clear, they're talking about people at the extreme, the people with high scores, not the people who are kind of in the middle, like I'm a normal dude. Right? And that's why I like this test, because it's not saying you're an extrovert and so you feel these things, and you're an introvert so you feel these things. It's here's where you are on the scale, and you're going to have a tendency to feel one of those ways a little bit more than the other. Okay? That's one of the reasons, like I said, why I like this test better. Okay, so as you can see, I score a 4.31 out of 5, and the median score is the 350. And most people kind of fall between 2.72 and 4.22 for extroversion, right? Great. So I'm north of the average person. So clearly I'm pretty highly extroverted. Right, but let's get into the details of what it means, what this test labels as extroversion. Okay, so social self-esteem. Interesting. The median scores pretty high in this. Right, so even if when you add up all your scores, even if you score relatively low as in extroversion, you may still have a ton of social self-esteem. That's what I mean by just because you think you are quote unquote introverted doesn't mean you're all of a sudden this insecure, pessimistic person. Okay? All right. Social boldness, 4.75. No surprises there. But interestingly enough, let's go to sociability. And this is what takes my score down. I'm below the median. And I'm probably just south of the average for people with sociability. Well, isn't that interesting? And so one of the other reasons why I love this test is it's not just you're an extrovert or an introvert. It's here's how we're going to measure how extroverted you are, and there are sub-modalities that we're measuring that add up to the whole. So while I may be social self-esteem, boom, social boldness, yeah, I'm totally socially bold, right? Check. But I'm not terribly sociable when you compare me to the rest. Now, I'm not extremely low, but I'm lower than the average. Lower than the average person when it comes to sociability. And that's why I kept saying in the definition more on that later, right? There's more to me and there's more to you than just saying you're an extrovert or you're an introvert. I like this test because it's driving home what I've been saying even before I started using this personality inventory. The thing I've been driving home with so many of you is it's not that black and white. I can't put you into a box. You exist on a continuum as a human being, right? And there's more to you than just a letter code. All right, liveliness. Of course, clearly I'm high there as well. All right, so let's go back down to the definitions of these facets. All right, so we're going to go to extraversion domain, but here we are. The social self-esteem scale assesses a tendency to have positive self-regard, particularly in social contexts. All right. High scorers are generally satisfied with themselves and consider themselves to have likable qualities. All right. Whereas low scorers tend to have a sense of personal worthlessness and to see themselves as unpopular. Again, at the extremes. And in this case, I am at the extremes for the high. But the cool thing is you can still be extroverted, still have relatively high extroversion, and score completely low in social self-esteem. Right? Usually people who need to be the center of attention, people who love to be the class clown. I bet you if you measured them, their social self-esteem is probably not as high as their boldness, sociability, and liveliness. They're probably off the charts with those three. The reason why they need to be the center of attention is they're trying to fill a void of insecurity. And you can totally have that void of insecurity even if you are crazy high in extroversion. And that's what I've been trying to drive home with a lot of the personality discussions we've had, is that you're not just this simple, you're not a robot that can just be binned into cute, simple, easy to define little boxes. There's nuance to you. All right. So social self-esteem, got it. I scored really high. What was my score on that one? It's like 475 or something like that. Yeah, 475, 475 on the first two. So let's go to the next one. We've got the social boldness scale assesses one's comfort or confidence within a variety of social situations. Low scores feel shy or awkward in positions of leadership or when speaking in public, whereas high scores are willing to approach strangers and are willing to speak up within group settings. Again, let's assume that the low score is typically associated with being an introvert, but you might not be an introvert just because you don't want to speak up in a group. You may lack some level of social boldness, right? Low scores feel shy or awkward in positions of leadership. But I can tell you one thing, and another thing I love about looking at personality this way is I believe these facets, these domains can change. You can work on certain things. For example, if I took you in and I coached you, like if you were in my Good Life Playbook program and you went through my Unbreakable Confidence course, the way I teach people how to have confidence, I could totally make you comfortable in a position of leadership. Even if you're a max introvert, know exactly how to do it. I know exactly how to do that. So I could actually increase your social boldness. I totally could. Because I've had it, I would be giving you very similar coaching and training that I got from mentors and teachers when I went through leadership programs, right? And one of the courses we're looking to build out in the Good Life Playbook is a basic leadership course, right? So just because you score low today doesn't mean that's where you have to live, right? And you may have misrepresented yourself as, oh, I'm just totally introverted. No, you may just not be socially bold. And your social boldness may come from an insecurity or a lack of competence that I could help you build, or someone can help you build, and it gives you a little bit more social boldness. Right? I know people who, if they score off the charts introvert on a Myers-Briggs test, are socially bold as hell, even more than me. I'm like, dang, I wouldn't have said that. A lot of comedians, a lot of people don't know, most comedians are introverted and they have nothing but social boldness. They stand on stage for an hour and say ridiculous things to try to get people to laugh, right? That takes a ton of social boldness and probably liveliness. But interestingly enough, they don't all have a ton of self-esteem. Uh-oh, looks like our stream Let me know in the comments if you can still hear me. My stream, uh, just froze up. Can you guys still hear me? My four-core processor on this PC just can't handle the streamings. But not to worry, I can pull up comments on my phone. Turn the volume down here. Andrew says, I don't know if I'm thinking of it wrong, but the people whom do not want the power of leadership tend to do that. Yes, that is correct. Reluctant leaders. Okay, can hear me, but the stream is frozen. Okay, I can live with that. This tends to happen every stream when I go on YouTube or Twitch. It doesn't, interestingly enough, it doesn't happen on live coaching calls, but YouTube and Twitch kill my processor. And it's not like I have a crazily cheap processor. I have an i7. All right, good. You guys can still hear me. All right, so again, social boldness, sociability. Now, this is the interesting part because this is where I score low or lower. I score lower than the average. I still score relatively. I score high. I score higher than the midpoint of the scoring scale, but I score relatively low in sociability. The scale assesses a tendency to enjoy conversation, social interaction, and parties. Nope. More on that in a second from me. Let's see. Low scores generally prefer solitary activities and do not seek out conversation, whereas high scores enjoy talking, visiting, and celebrating with others. So this is where I become a mixed bag. Um, these things are true of me with an asterisk, right? So there's a caveat here. Tendency to enjoy I love conversation, but I don't like a lot of small talk a lot of times. Like if I'm just getting to know you, I'll talk small talk or whatever. We talk about the Redskins game or like I think the Nats are playing tonight and I'm hoping they're going to win so they can go to the World Series. To me, that's kind of small talk, but that's friendly. I can do that type of banter. But I can't sustain that for hours on end without some type of philosophical element or some type of intellectual or emotionally stimulating element to it. Right? So I love conversation. I love social interaction. I don't necessarily love parties unless I'm going to one where I know all the people. I don't like going to parties where I don't know a lot of people, frankly, because I'm good at covering it. I'm very good at covering it because I have tools as a public speaker and, just as a leader. I have tools to navigate social environments that make me look like I'm less awkward than I am. But a lot of times, social gatherings require a desire to engage in so much superficial kind of surface level chit chat that I'm just not interested in. Or I'm at a place where everyone's into like something that I couldn't care less about, like Game of Thrones. Like I don't watch it. Next, but eventually, what happens if I'm at a party is I find a comfort zone and I'll find people that I like talking to, and I kind of do that. But like if you invited me to a party, and I did, like for example, I got invited to a party earlier this week to meet with these people who are doing all this cool stuff in business. It wasn't really a business thing. It was just friends that are in business were throwing this party, and I didn't want to go. I didn't know any of the people there. Like I don't like networking events. I really don't. Because I'm just a get to the point type person. Like I don't want to come here and drink a beer with you and so Jim, how did blah, blah, blah. I just like, look, man, you want to make money, I want to make money. How do we do it? Let's go. Like some of my favorite clients that I've worked with in the past, like I've been given a presentation like this one, but in real life, and I had a guy stop me in the middle of my presentation and say, "Yo, how do I hire you? Do I need to pay you about $1,000 a week, or how does this work? I don't need the rest of your presentation. Let's go. How do you and I get naked and get in this bed together?" And I said, "Great. So glad you asked that." That's more like I really appreciated that guy because he's my social type. Like, let's just get right to the point, right? So Like, why are we here? Just to sit around and look at each other? No. Like, I don't like going to bars. You couldn't pay me to go to a bar. I don't care if Jesus Christ is fighting Oprah Winfrey in the UFC. I'm not going to the bar with you to watch it. I'll watch the highlights on YouTube tomorrow. Right? But that's just me. But it just goes to show you a person who's crazily extroverted. And you guys have, those of you who've been around me a while, have heard me tell you what one of my best friends told me years ago, because he would always invite me out to stuff. And I'm just like, I'm good, man. I'm going to hang out. And like he always likes to play multiplayer games and video games. And I prefer single player games like RPGs where I can kind of just get lost in them. And he'd be like, dude, you are the most introverted extrovert. He's like, are you sure you're an extrovert, bro? I was like, I'm totally extroverted. Yes. I just don't like going into social situations where and frankly, let's be real. Like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Like, I have an affinity for people. In other words, I want to see people win. I want to see people's lives happy. But a lot of people get on my nerves. Like, just being real, it's funny. One of my donors back in the day heard me go off on a stream. One of the people that, it was actually a big YouTuber that used to support us on Patreon way back in the day, because I helped him through a hard time when the whole adpocalypse, when the adpocalypse first started years ago. And he's like, dude, I'm so glad to hear you kirk out, because you're always so polished. You're always so polite to these assholes that come on your streams. And I said, well, there's only like 3 assholes. I usually attract really cool people. It's like, but it was just nice to see you snap. Like, and I was snapped respectfully. I didn't snap. I just let somebody, know about themselves. And the truth is, a lot of, like, if you're an entitled person or a condescending person, I already don't like you. Now, I might love you and I'll help you. But there's like, I've been in business meetings where I've been brought in to help this business unscrew themselves with something, right? As a business growth consultant for a lot of years, a lot of times I have been brought in the past to fix things that are wrong with people's companies. And then one of the co-owners just starts laying into me. He's like, dude, you've never met me before. And he just starts very rudely and condescendingly just berating me over something he doesn't even know anything about. And even the person that brought me there was like, well, hold on, man. Like, he's trying to explain. Like, he even tried to mitigate this asshole. And it's like, I don't F with people like that. Even if he would have put money on the table, I'd be like, nah, I'm cool. I don't. And this was a long time ago. This was over a year ago. But it's, I won't work with people like that, because you'd be a nightmare. And it's probably going to end in either me whooping your ass, verbally, not physically, obviously. But it's not, that relationship's not going to end well, because I'm not a bitch, man. You're not going to talk to me like this is slavery and you own me. Like, I'll put a foot up your ass. You know what I mean? Like, I'm that type of person. And so sometimes I'm not social in a lot of cases. Like, people that are like high maintenance and needy and freaking now needy's not necessarily right, because I can be needy, but high maintenance entitled people drive me absolutely effing insane. And you can't avoid those people. So just like to stick to my own, man. So I'm not very sociable, but I'm still very extroverted. So you see how this all kind of plays in? And then you got liveliness. The scale assesses one's typical enthusiasm and energy. Low scores tend not to feel especially cheerful or dynamic, whereas high scores usually experience a sense of optimism and high spirits. So I'm not crazy off the charts high, but I'm pretty lively. But as a person who's dealt with chronic PTSD, anxiety, and depression, a lot of that, my mom used to say for years, until I started, I got my psych evaluation and started working on getting my health squared away. She was saying for years, like, you're not the same dude that I remember raising. Like, what's going on with you? You're just dark. You're angry. You're resentful. There's something in you that's not right. And I was blind to it. It wasn't that I was in denial. I was just like, what are you talking about? I said, I just don't like people who do shitty things. And a lot of people, I'm learning, outside of the military, do shitty things. And they bother me. So and I was dealing with that whole transition, trying to learn, and I'm still learning how to be a civilian. I don't think I know how. And hell, I didn't really know how to be much of a soldier either. So it's like caught in limbo. All right. So those are the things that I want you to think through. And this lesson, maybe more than all of them, is the one that I wanted to harp on because I watched too many people take this overly simplified approach to trying to understand themselves, and it's I'm an introvert, and it's like, well, wait a minute, before you stereotype yourself because you read that introverts are supposed to be fill in the blank and then you just associated yourself with that. Take a test like this and look at it a little bit more deeply. You may still not be very extroverted, but there may be things about you that lean towards more extroversion. Like I said, I know people who are not very extroverted at all because they're not lively and they're not sociable, but they have a ton of social boldness and a ton of self-esteem. But the other ones are so low that it balances them out, right? And they're less extroverted, right? And at the same time, I know people who are crazily sociable, crazily lively, have a ton of social boldness, and have no self-esteem. Right? That's going back to the class clown, center of attention person. Fishing for something. And then now that I have my computer back, I can show you my scores, right? So across the board, I'm relatively high in extroversion. And in fact, I heard it once said, and this has been true in my life. I wouldn't say that this is gospel or even science. But I have heard that, or it's believed that we get less extroverted as we get older. And that has absolutely been true for me. But what I think actually happens, and this is where I think the Myers-Briggs doesn't have the tools to explain. Honestly, I think what happens is as we get older, we all get more socially bold because we stop caring so much about rejection and judgment. And if we work on ourselves, we get more self-esteem, we get more self-compassion. But I think our liveliness and our sociability drops. I'm not as social. I mean, I was much more social when I was younger. Like I liked going to parties when I was in college, but it was also because I wanted to meet girls. I didn't care so much about the party. I was like, what girls are gonna be there? One of the ones I like gonna be there, type thing. But once I got married, it's like I'm good. I can just stay in the house now, or take her out. I don't need to go to parties because why is a man at a party? Because he wants to meet a woman. Come on, man. I don't know. I won't speak for the ladies because every time I've tried to speak for ladies, I've always had one tell me I'm crazy. You're wrong. Like, all right, fine. But for the dudes, we're going to parties to meet women. At the period, we go to the mall to meet women. Like everything before you're married and have a woman is centered around I need to eat and meet women. Like that's it. I need to be really good at something so I can attract women because they're not going to want to live in the woods or in a cardboard box. Right? So my sociability fell off the cliff as I got older, especially after I've been married for a good while. Because the person I want to socialize with lives in my house. And then it compounds when you have children because now I got all these other people who socialize all the freaking time. And I love my kids. But anybody who's a parent will tell you that your kids, 1 out of 100 times, say something that's actually interesting. And I get the hippie, but the words from our kids' mouths are just sweet suckles of joy. Yeah, it is. I love the voice of my children. And I can't stand listening to them talk about Fortnite and Zelda. I get interested in it because I'm interested in them, but I'd rather talk about anything else than Fortnite or Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Not interested in either one of those things. And I even play video games. I'd be glad to talk to my kids about video games, but they're into stuff that I think sucks. Or it doesn't suck. It's just I don't enjoy it. Like I played the new Call of Duty with my son. We got into the beta and I'm like, dude, this is boring. This is exactly like every other Call of Duty. Not fun. Thank you. I'm out. Right? So you get less. I have become less sociable over time. And it's because a lot of my sociability was because there was an ulterior motive, or not, there was a motive to meet potential mates. Period. I didn't socialize just for the sake of socializing. I was content to just be in my apartment playing video games or watching whatever I watched. Right, and I think the same thing goes with liveliness because as you get older, you just, unless you train crazily like me, your energy is not as high. Your testosterone starts to drop as a man. Right. All right. Let's take some comments, some questions here. I'm going to stick to my phone just in case my computer decides it doesn't want to work again. Travis Newcomb says those that serve the most lead the best, in my honest opinion. Yep, I can dig that. Josh Quinn says that and the culture we live in general, the culture perception of extroversion and introversion, it does. And that's why I wanted to do this talk for free, even though it's a part of one of our paid programs. I wanted to give as many people access to it, at least temporarily, as possible so you guys can start spreading the word. And then you all can join the program since it's cheaper than your Netflix subscription every month. So you can get these lessons and hundreds of hours of other coaching on anything you can think of because we're going to keep adding content. I just put out a request to our private group for members to say, hey, start getting in suggestions for what you want me to, me or a team member to teach on. Right? What do you want us to talk about? What's going to be, because I know what would be helpful if I was training me, but your life may be a little bit different. There may be something I have in my toolkit that I can give you that I have a blind spot to that I don't know that you need. And that's another thing. When you have a lot of training and development, sometimes you're blind to what other people need because you don't have that need anymore. Right? Like the post I made on Facebook today about being broken. Well, yeah, I was broken for a long time, but I've had a lot of help for a long time. That's why I look like I have it all together, even though sometimes I'm coming apart at the seams. It's because I have other people holding me together. And sometimes I don't remember exactly what it's like to be in some of those spaces because I've been out of it so long. And someone can bring me back. They're like, oh, yeah, let's talk about it. And just keep in mind, for those of you who are on the fence about joining, I will be closing it soon. We're only going to take in a certain number of members, and we're getting new memberships literally every day. Every day, new people are joining. And we're going to get to a certain threshold. And I'm flirting with the numbers right now because we're starting to hit volume. And once we get to a certain number, I'm cutting off memberships because I want to keep it an intimate group where I can still be an active part of hanging with these people. Travis Newcomb said, how much is the coaching? It's $12 a month, man. It's cheaper than your Netflix. It's cheaper than your Starbucks. Actually cheaper than pretty much probably everything. It's cheaper than your video games. But it's worth 1,000 times that. I'm just keeping it cheap because I know what it's like to be just starting off and you don't need some crazy expense when you're just trying to learn, the basics of how to put your life together, and trying to figure out self-awareness and all these things. So I basically made it so cheap that people would feel ridiculous. Like, I have to join that. Like, it's irresistible was my goal. Hopefully that's what will have happen. Let's see. Nietzsche Sean Will says, dropping the facts. Josh Quinn says, my score on sociability the last time I took the Hexaco is 2.75. So you might be more sociable than me. Yep. So I'm not completely, like my sociability is situationally dependent. Right? Like if I'm going to, like for example, Saturday, I have a dinner party that I'm going to, but it's with people that I love and I can't wait because these are people that enrich my life. You know what I'm saying? Like another example is I'm going to be getting Borderlands 3 and playing online with my best friend from growing up and a handful of other guys that I'm really close to. And I can't wait to do that. Like I'm really looking forward to doing that. Because I get to spend time with that guy and then the rest of my crew. Reading Dave says, I'd like to increase my social boldness. I want to keep the introverted exception, deep dive thinking for long term, high investment. But see, that's the thing. And that's another stereotype that we get into that, extroverts don't think deeply, they just shoot from the hip sometimes. But thinking deeply can be taught. You know what I mean? Like, it may not be and that's why I try to be careful with personality tests because I don't want you to fall into this trap of, this test tells me exactly what I am. It's not. It's just telling you what your default settings are. And when you know your default settings, you can augment and supplement yourself with, thinking very deeply and cautiously about things. Doesn't have to be an introverted thing. It's something that anybody can do if they understand how to do it. Right? And that's what I kind of want to steer you all away from. Dave, it's all about getting you connected. Travis Newcomb says, being in an abusive marriage did something similar to me. I can totally relate. Alyssa says, the screen is frozen. When are you getting the new computer? When I finish doing my research. When I finish, and honestly, it's on that. I did a stress test today on my CPU, my memory, and I did a benchmarking test. There is nothing wrong with my computer. It's not the machine. There's something else going on. I'm guessing in the kernel or in the software. It's a software issue because all the stress tests showed like, dude, my 4-year-old computer ran the benchmarking test at 116 frames per second. So I'm like, what? That's gangster numbers, man. So it's a software issue. So I'm not even 100% sure getting a new computer is going to fix it. But um, the I'm still doing I'm mapping out this computer piece by piece. Like I'm doing research on processors, motherboards, NVMe, solid state. Like every piece of this computer that I'm building from scratch, and I want it to be right. So I'm taking my time with it. And I think it's a streaming. It's something in the software with streaming that's not jiving with some setting on the computer. And I just haven't been able to diagnose. Hey, I'm just finishing up work, so I'm going to run home and then reconnect. Cool. Lisa says, LOL, you gave yourself 4 gifts of insanity. Good thing you like psychology. Oh, man. Broken Super says, all of my extroversion scores are very low. And interestingly, I can greatly embrace it, but it's very situation driven. And not often I don't strive to be the popular person. Right on. Alyssa says, I find extroverts find it more beneficial to talk through it, but they definitely think deep. Yes, that's definitely true with me, and that's the thing I think that's not even just tied to extroversion. I think there are just some of us learn by talking, and that's absolutely me. That shouldn't be a news flash to anybody. But yes, I talk out my thoughts because I gotta work through them. But I know more less extroverted people that talk through their stuff too. Um, I just think I also think this whole extrovert introvert thing that we've fallen in love with in the modern age, it's also, how do I explain what I'm trying to convey here? We've bought into, it's almost like there's conditioning that's been done. Oh, you should talk less. Like, and it's hard for me to explain exactly what I'm thinking, but I think some of what we perceive as our extroversion or introversion is conditioning, not just our genetic coding that determines 80% of our personality, give or take. I think some of it is just social conditioning. If you met my wife, you'd think she was an introvert. She is not by any stretch. But if you hung out with her, you'd think she was because she doesn't talk a lot. But she grew up in a house where that was frowned on. You keep your mouth shut. You see what I mean? So there was social conditioning that she would grow up her whole life probably thinking, "Oh, I'm an introvert." She's not. She's very extroverted and way more sociable than I am. Whew. Travis Newcomb says, "What about some more advanced things with the coaching, i.e., integrating God's?" Yep, that's in there too, man. So, um, the coaching has different levels, right? So you've got the Good Life Playbook, which right now comes with our 69 Pillars of Success, which is the free program that we had on YouTube. That's in the program. Our Unbreakable Confidence course, right? And the 69 Pillars of Success will help you greatly with determining what your purpose is. It's video number 2 in the program. Will help you greatly with that. And then going through the rest of the program, well, by the time you get to 69, and the goal is you do 1 video a day. It's actually 70 videos because when I started it was 69, but we added stuff at the end. So it's actually 71 videos total for the program, but one of them is the welcome video. But you go through 1 a day, and it takes on average 66 days to form a new habit. So I just made it 70 things, and every day you're getting a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more of the piece of the puzzle, and at the end of it you've got all of these mindsets that are now downloaded into your brain that you can use to navigate space, right? And a lot of the second video, which is called the 5 Pillars of Self-Awareness, is about helping you understand that destiny, right, from a much more practical perspective than I've ever seen it taught, right? Like, we break it down. And then you've got the Unbreakable Confidence course, which also has a 5 Pillars of Self-Awareness updated version in there, right? That only people in the program have ever seen. But then you've got the 52 book challenge. You've got a crash course, the Sales Mastery crash course, right? And so it's not just about learning how to sell products or do affiliate marketing. It's about how do you sell yourself as a human being to other human beings, because that's what being on Earth is. Right? How do you become an influential person is what that's really about. And of course, we talk about selling products to if you're a business person who wants to do that, right? And then you've got the Way of Walking Alone series by Miyamoto Musashi is going in there. I haven't uploaded that one yet, but that's going in there. And then there's the Social Media Master University, where all of the YouTube teaching I did, except for a separate business course, and we'll talk about that at the highest level of the program. Or the second level of the program. But everything except what used to be our black belt lessons for business owners is in that course, right? And then you're a part of the Understanding Your Personality course. This is actually going to be one of the videos in the course, so you're getting it live. And part of this will help you figure out that building that self-awareness is the foundation of you understanding your purpose and your destiny, right? And then we add on to that increasingly in-depth teaching that helps you progress through that to develop the skills and the knowledge and the strategies you need to actually accomplish it. When you go to that next level, people like Alyssa, who's here, Reading Dave, who's here, a couple other people, I think, they're in our Good Life Playbook VIP program, which is another 30 hours of in-depth one-on-one coaching with me and that group of people. And so you're watching me actually coach them through everything from eliminating limiting beliefs, deep dives into the 5 Pillars of Self-Awareness with worksheets and homework. And every month I've made it every other month now, because usually the homework assignments I give are pretty hefty, unless you're Alyssa and you can do them in 36 hours, because she's Wonder Woman. But that's that next level where we get way more in depth and into what are you trying to do personally. So like, you can watch me coaching one of the ladies in the group that wanted to start a small business. Now, you may not want to start a small business, but when you watch me walk her through the process, you can see yourself in her shoes, replace small business with whatever your thing is, and listen to the things I'm coaching her on and warning her about. Because then you can start to see, I could see how that ties to a pitfall that she was about to go into a huge amount of debt to try to start this business in the 30 minutes that I spent talking to her specifically during that call, I showed her how to do it basically for a couple $100s of supplies, right? And then she could eventually build the business and make it bigger and incur investors and stuff like that. But to start small, because you don't even know if you want to do this for the rest of your life yet. Start small and then increment. So that's in the VIP program, and that's separate. So the $12 a month thing is just the Good Life Playbook, and these are the Netflix courses that we're putting into the program. The VIP course is that 30 hours plus the black belt. Plus, I haven't added it yet, but I'm going to give everyone access to a private group that I coached 2 years ago, where we went there was even more things that we went in depth on, because it was a real small group of like 4 or 5 people that I was coaching in a small group. right? And then from there down the road, we'll probably have stuff that we add on to that. But that's kind of the long and short of how it works. But my recommendation for everybody is start in the Good Life playbook, the $12 a month, because the VIP program is expensive. It's not cheap. It's going to cost you. Well, if you're in the Good Life playbook, you get 25% off though, so it's a little bit cheaper. But that's pretty much how that works. Houston Woodward says, I'm an ENTJ and I've definitely noticed I learn more about my thoughts when I talk out loud. Yep. Travis says, I work through things similarly. I'm an ENFP. Cool. On the flip side, by Briggs Myers, I'm an INFP, but writing and talking things out helps me immensely. Honestly, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Thank you, Andrew, because you're helping me articulate it. All of us benefit from talking things out because when we're talking, it adds a color to our thoughts that just thinking about them doesn't have. When we talk about our thoughts, we get to take them out for a test drive and simulate our and this is something I used to run into with very, very low extroversion people in the past. I'd be sharing a thought and they would be finding the 90 reasons why it's wrong. I'm like, no, stop. Don't argue with me. I'm just thinking. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but keep arguing because you're refining my thought process. And it was like they never really got the benefits that I get out of because trust me, I think deeply as hell. I'll sit in here quiet and meditate for 30 minutes and just focus on something that I'm trying to accomplish. It's not that I always have to talk things out. Sometimes I need to shut up or sometimes I need to distract myself. Like, and that's why you always get ideas in the shower because you're distracted, right? You're not watching YouTube or doing all these other things that are entering your brain into the attainment of someone else's agenda. That's what entertainment means, and why it's not always good to over. It's never good to overindulge in it. So yeah, I think we all benefit from talking things out because we get to take our thoughts out and we get to get feedback on them, which we can't get in here. But we've been raised to believe, oh, I'm introverted, so I don't talk until I've thought it all the way out. Well, sometimes talk it out. The only reason you don't talk it out is going back to social boldness. And that's why I like this test too. I can't tell you how many Myers Briggs facilitations I've been in where the introverts are like, I don't ever talk until I know I'm right. Well, why is that? Because you're afraid to get criticized? Yes. It's not an issue you being introverted in the sense that that's just what you do. It's a social self-esteem and a social boldness that you lack because you don't want to be seen as wrong because that comes with the level of rejection. And if your self-esteem is lower, and I'm not saying you have to be introverted to have low self-esteem. Extroverts can absolutely and do absolutely have low self-esteem from time to time. Alyssa says, I've done the 69 pillars twice and plan to go back and watch the 5 pillars of self awareness again. It's cheaper if you plan to stick around. Psst, you will stick around. Yes, you will. Halston says, I also meditate. I just recently started. Yeah, man, meditation's cool. Very cool. And, the 69 pillars, Alyssa brings up a good point that I don't think I did a good enough job driving home in the program, which was you should do this 3 to 4 times a year. Like every quarter, you should go through the 70-day course, or maybe twice a year. 4 times a year is probably a little bit much. Um, but I tell people like you should go through the 69 pillars regularly, like just or if you're like me and I get a good program, I'll just put it on repeat and just play it and play it and play it and play it until I play it out. I told you guys, I may have told you guys the story. I got an email from a guy that says, "Yo, I just went through your 69 pillars course." Uh, And last year, using the lessons that you taught there, I increased my income by $20,000 a year. I was like, Amen. I told you. You know what I'm saying? $12 a month to 20,000. What's the math on that, y'all? Spend $12 a month, right? So let's see, $144 a year, right? So $144 a year, and this dude did 20,000. So let's divide that by So it was, let's see here. Uh, uh, I got to pull out a calculator because I'm not good at math. You guys can watch me doing it on screen. Yeah, it was 138.88888 times. He got 138 times the value of the program. I don't know how many programs are going to say, yeah, we'll give you 138 times what you pay. And that doesn't always manifest itself in money. Not everybody's there to make a lot of money. Some people are there to learn how to be stronger, to overcome other. But how much is it worth to you? What's it worth to you to have more confidence? What's it worth to you to know how to influence other people in a positive way that's not manipulative and doesn't make you seem like a dirty person, like most salespeople seem on the internet? You know who I'm talking about. Um, how much is it worth to you to understand your purpose and then to have tools that actually help you get after it? Is that worth $12 a month to you? Last time I checked, a Nintendo Switch is $250. A Nintendo Switch will cost you more per year than this program, or more in a year. Let's see. Paul Looping says, but when I talk with someone, my opinion gets dominant because all things I think burst out. And so that's something, now that you're aware of that, and that's one of the beauties of self awareness. Now that you're aware that that's a reality, you can work on that, right? Somebody asked me, I'll probably shoot up. I did a request on my Facebook page, Bryant Chambers page, if you guys want to follow me, uh, asking people to give me topics they'd like me to discuss on the podcast. And somebody who I believe believes themselves to be introverted said, "What could extroverts learn from introverts?" And I was in a Myers-Briggs facilitation years ago. This would have been probably 9 years ago, and they paired you up with someone who was like your opposite type, like your shadow, right? And so in the group, you had someone that was your shadow so that you could feed off of each other. And this person lacked social boldness, right? And I lacked any semblance of keeping my mouth shut when I had a good idea. So she taught me, like I taught her how to be more confident in what she was thinking in the moment because of her introversion or her lack of extroversion actually was a strength, not a liability. And so I framed that for her. She's like, yeah, word up. And so for me, she actually taught me a tool that she says it's like, I wish extroverted people like you who have a tendency to blurt out, you're not good at active listening. She's like, so what I wish all of you would learn is when you're listening to someone, in the back of your mind, she's like, pay attention, but in the back of your mind, when you feel that inclination to respond, especially if it's something that you're passionate about, it's hard to hold it in. Right? You've heard me on the podcast overtalk my wife at times because it's like, but I'm much better than I used to be. She's like, when you feel that need to respond, she said, in the back of your mind, keep your front of your mind focused on the speaker, but in the back of your mind, count to 10 before you speak. Just count to 10. Or if nobody's talking, count to 10 before you talk, because one of us less extroverted people probably wants to talk, but we're giving the room a minute to settle before we launch out. She said, so what I wish a lot of you would do is count to 10. So I got this awesome tool from her perspective. She's like, I wish people like you would do this so that it gives people like us who are less inclined to speak out a little bit more time, because it takes us a second to get that boldness up. I was like, all right, bet. So I actually started using that. I had a therapist one time teach me that, because I had an issue with, when I came out of the military, especially when you're a combatant, you have an aggressiveness to you. And I don't mean aggressive like, oh, I'm going to fight you. I mean like you get after it. If you get after it. And sometimes people are like, oh, he's intense. Right? And so what he taught me was something he had learned from Magic Johnson, the famous basketball player. He said, Magic Johnson is 6'6". He's never in a room where he's not the big black dude. He's always the biggest guy in the room in these business meetings. He said, so when he would sit, he would actually kind of slouch himself to a degree to make himself smaller to be less intimidating to the people across the table from him. So that was something that it was more of a figurative thing for me because I'm not as big as Magic Johnson, but I know how to make myself smaller so that I don't crowd somebody else out who doesn't have that boisterous personality that can just come into the room and immediately get attention. Right? I know how to make myself a little bit more laid back and reserved and to tone it down. Like even if you ever come see me speak, you'll hear inflections. It'll go up, but then it'll come down when I'm wanting to get you to focus on something that's wildly important. And I'll speak more quietly, forcing you to, whoa, what is he saying? This must be important. So these are all things that can be learned. So now that you're aware of that, that's something that you can do. If you know that you're dominating a conversation, use the 10-second rule. Force yourself to count to 10 before you respond. And some therapists I've had do it like awkwardly. They let you finish talking and then they stare at you. And then I'm like, dude, you can talk. Like, you don't have to do this silence is awkward because you're staring at me. You know what I mean? So, and that's really the long and short of what I wanted to talk about tonight. Okay. This idea that, extroverts are good and introverts are bad, kill it. It's not true. Your personality is not so simple that it can just fit cutely into a very simple box, right? You are a very, very nuanced, complicated life form, and that's okay. That's cool. That's what makes human beings so exciting to be around and why I enjoy coming and talking to you all because you all have different perspectives and ideas and cultures and backgrounds. I mean, a lot of you are from all over the world, and it's like I can't imagine living at a time where I can literally be talking to people halfway around the globe, just sitting here in my, my home library. Freaking awesome. So how do you do the opposite? Someone else is always talking and you can't seem to get in the conversation. Touch them. A lot of times you'll find that those boisterous people are very kinesthetic. And not in like a awkward way. Be like, hey, that's so touch them, merit what they're saying, because that's a signal that you're trying to get in. If you're there, it's kind of like, yo, like let's switch roles. Like you're the guy that's be like, hey man, hand on the arm. That's a great point. And then go right into now you have my attention because you touched me. You have to disrupt the pattern because the person who's going to monopolize the conversation's always going to monopolize the conversation. You have to disrupt their pattern. And for you who may not have as much social boldness, you're not going to overtalk them. Get kinesthetic with them. Be like, hey man, I really like that point. And so you disrupted the pattern, you merited what they're saying, right? So you're interrupting, but in a way that makes them feel good about what they're saying, right? And you've given yourself kind of that moment of confidence to where you don't just have to blurt out, you got that pattern disrupt, and you merited him, and now you have the floor. You have the floor. One of the easiest ways to get someone to shut up is touch them. Very simple. Great question. I actually had someone do that to me in a business meeting one time. I was running my mouth and I was pissing off the client. This was probably 10 years ago. I was so not self-aware that like everyone in the room could see the client like, I'm going to light this dude on fire because he doesn't. And I was right. Don't get me wrong. What I was saying was 100% right. The client's idea was terrible. But then one of my teammates just gently touched my finger. And I said, all right, got it. Shutting my mouth in 3, 2, 1. Right? Touch is very, very powerful. Right? So you gotta, it's all about disrupting the pattern. Broken Suba says, good point. Would that be considered social empathy? Being aware of my social impact on others is a big part of why I limit my social. Yeah, sure, man. It's empathy, but there's, empathy can also be, empathy going too far where you're just all about everyone else is a lack of self compassion. It can be an insecurity too, so you don't want to take that too far. Alyssa says, I have a good amount of social boldness. Or, if you don't want to interject, just put your hand on there and jive with them while they're talking, because then they're going to be like, why is this dude touching me? And then he's going to get like, oh, did you want to say something? Yeah, I like what you were saying. Like, there's ways you can dance around it. And honestly, just practice. Try stuff. Like, find some of Tony Robbins' obscure coaching calls where he had an issue with racism in one of the audiences, and he got the black people to sing "I'm a honky," and he got the white people to sing "I'm a nigger." Oh my God, that was one of the funniest coaching calls I've ever heard in my life. Was Tony Robbins had white people, and he said all the white people at lunch were calling each other nigger, and the black people were calling each other honkies. he said, he says you just have to be willing to try stuff. Now, I'm not suggesting you try that. If you're a 6'7" giant, you could probably get away with that on stage. Uh, I wouldn't do that if I was most of you. And I wouldn't do that. I mean, that was probably back in the 90s where everybody wasn't so sensitive to everything. But he even said, like, in the crowd, you could see people like, what did he just say? And it's like, yo. So he's like, you just have to be willing to try stuff, man. Let's see. Lisa says, I have a good amount of social boldness. I think it's because I'm the youngest of 9 kids, so I had to get. Absolutely. Hippie says, I don't feel comfortable with friendly touches like that. You don't feel comfortable just touching somebody's arm, or you don't feel comfortable when people touch your arm, or both. Or just, I mean, do anything to disrupt the pattern. Raise your hand. You have to do something to get the attention on you if you have something you want to interject. But that's good to know if I ever see you in person, because I always touch people when I talk to them. I'll remember that you don't like the, like, hey man, get in my bubble. I'm usually able to pick up on it if it's a person that doesn't like the hands-on approach. Usually people who are like that are very stiff, and I can sense the energy. I'm usually able to pick up on it, but it's good to know. I'll remember that when you come to one of our live VIP sessions at the gun range. Uh, Suba says, I'm good at not taking it personally, but yeah, I hate being touched, especially by strangers. Okay. I will keep all this in mind. All my non touchy people. I'm not like a touchy feely huggy person, but I will, when I talk to people, I'll shake hands and put my hand on your arm, say, hey, it's good to meet you, or a hand on. I'll do the Bill Clinton, shake your hand and put, your hand in my other hand. Um, but yeah, usually I'm able to pick up on it when people are put off by that, because the people who are cool with it have an energy that comes at you. The people that aren't cool with it kind of pull back from you. So I'm able to read it usually. I'm sure there's been some times where I've done it. I actually went to hug a lady once, and I'm not a hugger when it comes to like ladies, but this was someone that I knew, and she's like, no, no, I don't hug. Check. I don't like hugging ladies either. I thought she was trying to hug me. It became this awkward thing because with ladies, I won't hug them usually unless I know them very well. Not a thing I do. Yes, Alyssa, 100%. Initiating touch makes you seem friendly and open. The trick works. Yes, it does. It's actually an exercise you can do on a date that will create a crazy level of intimacy with someone that you've just met. Remind me to teach it to you guys on a future coaching call. If you're trying to really build intimacy quickly with somebody, there's a physical activity, non-sexual, obviously. It's not even forward. Cool. Any other questions? Because I've done my rant. Does anybody else have any questions? Anything I can answer for you? So, Hip, you're going to have to figure out how you disrupt the pattern in the room. Like, if you're not comfortable speaking out, you're not comfortable touching another person, think through what are some things you could do to disrupt their pattern. And some of it may just be you have to get over some of your discomfort. You may have to speak up. You may just have to get over. Like if and trust me, here's the real deal. What's really keeping you from speaking out is it's not that. Like if it was life or death, you'd speak up, right? You'd overcome some of that discomfort. Just like sometimes I have to get over my discomfort and go to social things that my mom invites me to. I just logged on. I have no idea what has been discussed. All right. Understanding your personality has been discussed. Well, yeah, if you don't have anything to add to the conversation, then keep your mouth shut. What are we talking about? Hip? What? If you don't have anything to add, don't add. Yeah, just sit quietly if you don't have anything to add. And that's cool. That's like me in a Game of Thrones conversation. I wouldn't know jack. I just sit there. That's very nice. How much doggy style sex was in this episode that you're talking about? Because that seemed to be all they were obsessed with in the first season that I watched. And then you feel like you need to add something sometimes. Okay. Nope, you don't. If you don't have anything to add, don't add it. Yeah, don't be that guy at the meeting where you're on the conference call and then I feel like I need to add my 2 cents. Don't do it. Just shh. If you don't have anything, you ain't got anything. Just let it ride. Let's see. There's an amount of social awkwardness. This is broken soup. There's an amount of social awkwardness that comes with silence and the expectation of talking. Yes, there is, and I always this is something you'll learn if I'd recommend all of you who call yourself introverts go do what's it called? Oh man, oh, I forgot the name. It's the public speaking support group, Toastmasters. Go do Toastmasters. They will teach you how to become like if you guys notice on my podcast, there's breaks where I'm not saying anything totally on purpose. Like I'm not breaking for the sake of breaking, but it's I'm getting my thoughts together for what I want to say next, and I'm totally cool letting you all sit there in silence for 10 seconds. And I've done that on stage, where I just look at the crowd, let a point land, and in that moment I'm thinking through, okay, how am I going to frame this next thing that I'm going to say? And is it awkward? Only to the person who's on stage. Everyone else is just like, oh, what's he going to say next? In fact, if you take it long enough, you can get laughs. Like silence is hilarious, depending on how you use it, right? So, like I was hosting a show last year, might have been around this time. Yes, buddy. No, baby. Go get in the bed, okay? I'll come tuck you in a minute. Love you. Um, my youngest, the night owl. Uh, I was hosting a show, and I'm much better at either improv or just talking around a theme than I am reading a script. But I had to read a script for the show because everything was timed. And so I was discussing something that was in their gift bags or whatever at this event, and I said, uh, in your gift bags, there's a thing, right? And I said, and my script tells me to hold it up and show it to you. So I was breaking the fourth wall for the sake of a laugh, and everyone got kind of a laugh out of it. And then I was, but you can use silence, totally use silence as a way to get your thoughts together and just stay in the moment. You're the one who's talking. It's only awkward if you make it awkward for yourself. Everyone else is like, oh yeah, I can't wait to hear. If you're interesting, what is this person going to say next, right? So that's an awkwardness that my point is that's an awkwardness that you can overcome. Like people who say a lot when they're talking, that's a nervousness, and it's Toastmasters, for example, will coach you out of that. because anytime you get up to speak, you'll have notice how I paused right there instead of saying that's from practice, right? When you get up to speak, you'll have evaluators in the room who are taking notes. One other person is counting your ums, right? And so every time you do a talk, you should have less and less of that, and you should get comfortable. And the thing that's beautiful about Toastmasters, for those of you who are very much not socially bold, is everyone I've been to, it's an environment of love and compassion for the people in the room, and especially for the person who's speaking. There's no judgment. There's no, I'm going to rip you down because that was terrible. Everything is encouraging, even when it's something that you need to improve upon. Even when it's something that doesn't, if it goes off the rails. I think one of the exercises I had to do a talk about Super Dave. I had to do a talk about Evil Knievel, and I knew Evil Knievel, but not terribly. He was a little bit before my time, and I just winged it. But then you've got people in the room evaluating you and helping you work through that, and helping you to understand that pausing for effect can actually, and even in conversation, not just in a public speaking situation, can be highly effective because it can give the person a second to process what you've already said and keep up with you. Hippie says, how the frick do people constantly talk in a conversation without stopping? I can't understand how people do it. The Well, you just need to deploy a little bit of empathy. Try to put yourself in their shoes. For example, it's strange to me people who don't like to be touched. That's weird. It doesn't compute to me why someone would be completely put off by. I mean, if they're touching you awkwardly in a way that's uncomfortable, sure. But a person like dapping and hugging, or a person that puts their hand on your shoulder, I have no idea what it's like for that to create a negative emotion in me, because I come from a family where my father was highly affectionate, right? And so he was very much, he would hug me all the time. He'd put his hand and listen to me intently. I don't know what it's like to feel awkward, but I can empathize with you, even though I don't understand it. I can say I get it. I mean, I can at least empathize. I can put myself in your shoes and say, okay, let me imagine what it would be like if someone touched me in a way that was awkward, right? And I can at least imagine it, even if I can't fully understand it. Same thing. There's people who get tremendous energy out of the intellectual stimulation that comes from conversation, and they want to keep going and keep going and keep going. For you, that's not the case. To be able to do that probably takes a lot of energy from you. So if you want to look at it biologically or biochemically, the glycogen in your brain is being used very heavily when you're engaged in that conversation, leaving you fatigued at the end of it. So for you, it's like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I ran a marathon. For me, at the end of this talk, I'm not burning a whole lot of glycogen, because the way my brain's wired, I am fired up to have this conversation with you guys and could talk for hours if I had to. And at the end of it, I'm going to have trouble sleeping tonight because I'm going to be so fired up that I had this great conversation with this great group of people. Oh man, it was awesome. It's going to take me an hour or two to wind down. That's why a lot of times after these calls, I still very late at night do Twitch live streams, because I can just play a game, and that's how I'll slowly wean myself off the high of hanging out with you guys. But for someone whose energy goes the other way, you're going to need that isolation. So just you can imagine what it's like, even if you can't fully understand it. And what I tell people all the time is there's a lot of things I don't understand, but the universe is under no obligation to help me understand it. I just accept it. It just is. And sometimes I'll even just be straight with people, like, all right, that's it for this conversation. Thanks. I'm going over here to get some food. Andrew says silence can be very powerful when speaking. It also can let a person asking a question to answer it themselves or give the details about the situation that they're in. Yeah, and it's active listening too is I always give people a buffer when they're trying to ask me for advice. And I've done this in family and client meetings where I'll just sit silently when they finish talking, and then the awkwardness will get them to keep talking. But in that keep talking, they'll share more about the problem so that I can better help them. Or if they don't have anything else to share, they'll say, "Oh, so what do you think?" And I'm like, now there's so a lot of times I'm practiced at just shutting up, and this is easier for people who are less extroverted, but I'm trained, so I can do it. I'll just shut up and I'll nod my head and look at you, and it's like, no, don't let this be an awkward silence. But you know what else is the problem? Like, oh no, please tell me more, so I can sit here quietly and understand how I can better help you. That's a sales tactic that you'll learn in the sales course. Let's see. Hippie says it sounds really dumb and cliche, but I truly, honestly think the reason I don't like being hugged is that I wasn't hugged enough as a kid, shown affection. Maybe not. I was shown a ton. You might be right. Uh, it's the only thing that makes it. But the other reason I can empathize with you is that my first career was in the military, and you don't touch women. Hug them in uniform. You don't do any of that. So I am still to this day very leery of hugging women that aren't my wife or family or someone that I'm very close to, because I still have that very military. Because in the military, that could be construed as sexual harassment. Just because if I popped off and hugged somebody, ding, 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 sexual harassment, throw them out of here, right? So I was indoctrinated into that type of belief system, to where still to this day I'm like, ladies, hit the rock, fist bump. Like if a lady comes in for the hug, usually I'm cool, but if they don't initiate, I'll hug dudes all day. That should be like a sound bite. I'll hug dudes all day. But ladies, I'm like, no. And that's more conditioning than it is personality. I was also very insecure around women growing up. So that probably plays into it as well. I had a lot of fear of rejection. Wasn't really popular with the ladies ever until I met my wife. Thank God I met her, because I'd probably be the single guy at the club, miserable. Let's see. Eek says, or is it Ike or Eek? How do you say your name, brother? Get me squared away so I can address you properly. Says, what can I do to speak less? Speak less. That's it. Speak less. It's not a magic trick. Just stop talking. Shh. Projecting disinterest, even if you aren't. Possibly, I could see that. Yeah, Suba, I could see that potentially being an issue. It makes sense. See, Halston says, does anyone ever feel as an ENT you let people go too easily? What do you mean by let people go? Like stop being friends with people? Oh, we just had somebody join the Good Life Playbook. Oh, yeah, told you. Y'all don't drag your feet. We're gonna fill up quick, and then you're gonna be kicking yourself when we all take over the world. Let's see. Another new membership. Let's see. He says, "I'm laughing so hard at that. That's logical. Speak less." Yeah, I didn't mean to Jocko Willink your question. He's one of my favorite people when he does Q&A. They'd be like, "Jocko, yo man, how do I get up earlier in the morning?" He'll just write back, "Get up earlier." Like, what do you want me to tell you? But yes, yeah, just stop talking. Just if there's one thing I've come to believe about ENTJs, when you set your mind to something, you will get it done. So set your mind to it, and it shall be done. Heck, where's my keyboard? So I'm only on my phone because I'm waiting for you guys to get your questions in. And I know you're about 10 seconds behind me, so I'm not actively trying to ignore you all. See, Holston says, yes, relationships. As soon as I see them as unfit in my life, even in the slightest, I'm done. Okay, so how do you feel about that, right? Because you're saying you you feel like you let people go too easily. Why do you feel that way? So why do you feel like you're letting people go too easily? And while we're waiting for Houston to come back to me, how did you guys feel about that last podcast? If you listened to it. And if you guys aren't listening to my podcast, you are missing out big time. See, Hippie says, someone hurt me emotionally back in high school, and it's been hard to keep friends around since. I'm afraid to open up to them. Well, that's fair. I mean, you should have some level of, protection for your heart. The challenge becomes when you start to see the same kind of evil in other people that may or may not be there. So you gotta, if you want to be close to people, you have to be vulnerable. The trick is, you know, one of the things that, and maybe this is something that I should add to our Good Life Playbook, is how to build effective relationships. It's something that I've toyed with. I know years ago I created like the happy marriage program or whatever. And it really, the program lacked empathy in that I didn't realize, I kind of narcissistically or selfishly kind of was looking at it as if I was trying to coach a younger me, but then just coming to realize that it was out of touch with the times. Like people weren't thinking about getting married; they're just trying to think about how to build relationships with people. Um, and because it was mostly on YouTube, it was just like, yeah, bro, well, none of us are trying to get married. We're 17. Why? What are we doing? But it's you can't have intimacy without vulnerability. It doesn't exist. The key is understanding how to read traits about people accurately so that you can effectively determine whether or not someone has your best interest at heart. And there are clear telltale signs in people's the way they talk and their behaviors and their body language that gives that off. And it's one of the things I was taught as a very young dude was how to effectively build relationships. And I'm not just talking about dating. I'm talking about how to relate to other people was one of the things my first mentor outside of my family taught me. Was I'm a 20-year-old kid basically getting taught, okay, here is how you actually build intimacy with people and you have escalating levels of trust with them. And here's how you set boundaries and here's and he just layered on this is and he didn't do a whole lot of talking. He taught me how to build relationships by the way he formed his relationship with me as kind of a big brother father figure. That to this day, I just sent him a message on his birthday telling him how much I loved him and how my life is on a completely different trajectory because he was in my life. Right? So one of the things I'm trying to give back to you guys is a lot of these things that have been given to me at a very young age so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls that I went through as I got older. Right? I used to joke that I was the internet's big brother, right? And it's because I'm old enough to remember when there was no internet, but I'm the generation that really ushered the internet in, right? So, and you guys, you younger folks, are the generation that's benefiting and then adding on to what our generation ushered in. And so the how to build effective relationships, like there are signs that just telltale stuff that I know because I've been trained and I just so happen to have put together with the help of one very beautiful lady, not just physically but spiritually, building almost a 17-year marriage. So I know the pitfalls. I know where the mines are in the minefield. And I also had a lot of coaching leading into how do I pick this woman as a mate? What am I looking for? And literally, I have been in coaching sessions with butcher block paper on before whiteboards, butcher block paper, writing out what do you think you want in a mate. And then he took us through how do you make this happen? How do you communicate effectively? How do you know if someone's a narcissist? Do you know how many people on YouTube, like if anyone's ever left you a negative comment, I can immediately tie it back to mental health issues without fail. Right now, in some cases, it's a guy having a bad day. All right. It's not always a mental health. Sometimes they're just having a bad day. But a lot of people, there's rampant mental health problems on social media. Right. And so just like you can see that in social media, the way people behave, you can tell if someone's going to be ultimately selfish and narcissistic. A lot of times people are just too afraid to be alone. And I'm telling you, alone is better than being miserable. More on that later in life. Alone is better than miserable, friends. I've watched many people stay together and life sucked for a long time until they either separated or died. So let's see. Reading Dave said, I can relate to about half of the podcast. Cool. Better than zero. For sure, man. Andrew says, I didn't listen to the most recent, but I did listen to the perfectionism one yesterday. Cool. Halston says, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. It's hard to understand how I feel and not just what I think. Good, good, good. Now you're on the right track. That's why I'm getting you to talk about it. Tell me some more. Give me some for instances. Who did you cut loose, and why do you maybe have that inkling that you cut them loose too early? Talk it out. That's something that your personality type is not necessarily very good at. You're very good at the logic, and it's comfortable up here. It's not always comfortable in here. The best way to get into here is to talk your way into it. So it's going to be uncomfortable for you, but it's going to ultimately be good for you to do that. Broken Suba says, I, for one, have very high standards for friends. There's not many people whose values match mine, not opinions, values. I cherish opposite opinions, but I don't let unworthy, quote unquote, people get far. That's pretty smart. Says, I've not had so many relationships, but once I saw a future with them wasn't possible, I ended it without looking back and felt good each time. Right on. Alyssa says, I have few friends because I have high standards, as I expect equal investment from others and prefer deep and meaningful relationships. It's difficult to open up since I think that's just healthy. Broken Super says, if they get toxic, okay. Says, I won't lie, it's difficult though. Oh, he's talking. Dark Dally says, shit, I was asleep. What did I miss? Everything, Dark Dally. I gave away $1 million to everyone in the crowd. Everyone that was here on time got a Lamborghini in the mail. Color of their choice. Alyssa picked lime green. So yeah, you missed out, man. You missed out on $1 million in a Lamborghini. And the first person that commented, I put their kids through college. So you got to get here on time, man. Otherwise, you're gonna miss out. You think YouTube would demonetize me for saying that? If I monetize, I don't monetize my YouTube channel. That's another coach. I should. There's some new YouTube coaching I should probably do about the future of YouTube and why you better have a backup plan or just a plan to make money. That's of course I've been saying that since 2014. So hopefully, let's see. Uh, Reading Dave says, I'm trying to figure out who I want as a mate. Sometimes I wonder if those traits are the ones I should be working on in myself. Yes, by the way, having little experience with intimate relationships, I'm looking for ways to understand who I might like. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, that coaching class I sat through when I was 20 or 21. My mentor had the separated, I think he put the women in. He separated the men and the women, and had us like put our list together of our dream mate. And then it was funny because then you got to see what the women wrote and you got to see what the guys wrote. And it was great, man. It got you to really. One of the things we suck at as human beings, and it's not our fault, man. We're just not taught to do it. Is to be specific about what you want in life. Period. Whether it's a mate, whether it's a career, you got to be specific, and we're just not taught that. We're taught Archduke Francis Ferdinand was shot and then a war started. Well, how is that helping me live, man? I don't give a damn about Archduke Francis Ferdinand. He's dead. He doesn't matter. Instead of being taught how to be self aware and how to want things properly and then put in the work to get them and put in work that's actually effective to help you get them. See, reading Dave, Houston says, I have great empathy for people, but how I feel about my emotions are a constant battle. I understand that. An example of cutting people off too easily. I had friends that I've known for years that when I felt they had wronged me, I cut them off instantly. So part of that is how bad was the wrong? Like if they shot your father, got it. Of course, cut them off. But did they not show up to a cookout? Where you've got to figure out is if you feel like you're cutting people off too early, there's a reason why you're feeling that. Something in you subconsciously saying, hey, maybe we need to show a little bit more mercy. but you're the one that has to set the boundaries. What is the line that people can't cross? And part of the reason why you're conflicted is you've probably never defined what that line is. What are you willing to accept and what are you not willing to accept? And then once you understand that about yourself and you make that determination, then when something happens to you, you say, is that over the line? Nope. Okay, let's keep going. Right? Those are questions that you need to ask yourself and find the answers, because that answer is going to come from within. I can't give you that. I can't tell you if you're cutting off people too early, right? Because I don't have your, I'm not you, right? I may not have the same, I may not have the same values, or I may not care about the same things. I may not be, like, I don't get offended. It's not my thing. People can say whatever they want about me. They can call me that. I don't get offended. I think getting offensive, when people get offended, for me, I'm not talking about anyone else, but for me, if I'm offended, then I have a weakness that I need to work on. Because if someone else can say or do something that makes me offended, that's on me to be the bigger person and to be the stronger person, right? So you have to define what is the line that someone can or can't cross. And when you're establishing a relationship with someone, as trust starts to build, communicate those boundaries. Communicate them. Like, hey, listen, I don't play, a lot of my inner circle, I don't need to communicate my boundaries because we're all locked in. We're all locked in, same values, same mission. We're all trying to do the same thing, maybe in different ways, but the outcome's the same, right? And it's just we understand the standards because we are cut from the same cloth, right? And short of attempted murder, there's not something that's going to make me kick these guys to the curb. It's just not going to happen because I value their friendship and their brotherhood and or sisterhood in my life, and I depend upon it. So even if they come up short, there's like I told my wife, short of it, we used to joke about this, but I'm dead serious. Short of attempted murder, I'm not leaving her. It's not happening. We've worked too hard to build a good thing that can't be torn down by betrayal or anything else. I ain't leaving. And even if she tries to kill me, we're going to at least go to couples counsel and be like, listen, what did I do? Let's talk about it. What made you want to kill me? Because we had a good thing going. You know what I mean? So my threshold, but see, the difference with me is I don't let people into the circle. Like, I don't have to cut people loose because most people are never going to get past the moat and the alligators and the dragon. Like, I will keep people at a distance. I think I've kicked one friend to the curb, and that was 20 years ago. Because I don't let people in. Like, if you're in my inner circle, there's a reason why you're sitting there, and it's because you've bled for me and I for you, period. Sometimes probably literally, right? So bottom line, so I don't have to worry about cutting people loose because I don't need a lot of friends. I'm good with my inner circle. I have a ton of acquaintances. I have a ton of people that I help and I like and I love and I want them to be great. But I have an inner circle and I don't worry too much about cutting people. There's nothing my inner circle could do because even if they betrayed me, there's a reason for it, and I would need to understand why, and we'd figure it out. Because once you're in the circle, it's blood in, blood out, man. But that's me. I can't tell you how to live your life. You have to figure out where your boundaries are. But I will tell you that if you're questioning it, it's your subconscious trying to tell you something's up and that you probably haven't defined your boundaries as well as you need to. Right? And you need to start thinking about what does it take to be inside your inner circle? What do you demand from a friend to make it into your inner circle? And as such, what are you willing to sacrifice and give? And it better be equal or greater than what you demand. Right? And I think that's fair. Like, I tell people when they join my programs, like, just because you're spending money, I have expectations of you, even though you spent money to be here. You're going to work. You're going to go through the lessons. We're not going to be 3 years down the road and you're asking me a question that I answered in the second. I had a guy do that. 3 years into a coaching program, it was what eventually became the VIP. This dude asked me a question. I said, bro, that was in video number 2 from 3 years ago. What have you been doing for 3 years? Like, you're paying to be here. Why are you not watching the videos? And I was being stern with him, Who knows? Maybe he had a death in the family. He couldn't get to it, but I wanted to know. Like, dude, I answered that exact question in detail, way more than I can type out in a freaking Facebook post. Go watch the video. What are you doing? Let's go. And I have that expectation because I want people to win. So there's a level of accountability when people join our programs. And I've put people out. Well, I've put person out. Only one person, and it wasn't malicious or the person was evil. Just wasn't the right fit. They needed something that I wasn't able to give, and I wanted to be honest about that. Refunded the money, but yeah, you've got to figure out what that boundary is, brother. Spend some time thinking on that and talking to someone that you trust about it. Because I would submit to you, Halston, that if you're cutting people off instantly, they're not in your inner circle. You're not letting people really get in there, and it's because you probably haven't defined what it takes to be a close friend or a brother or sister to you. Let's see. Josh Quinn says, I thought about writing a list of the qualities I would like in a partner. I made a few attempts, but have not fully completed. Yeah, but that's the attempt, man. That's amazing. There's no such thing as completing it because you might add stuff to it later. And the beautiful thing is, if you're detailed enough, don't worry about perfection. If you're detailed enough, you'll realize that you'll probably attract a person to you that has even other things that you didn't think of. Man, my wife, some of the stuff she brought to the table to help me heal as a broken soul, I couldn't have even known to ask for that. She just has it. And it was an added benefit that she brought that grace and mercy into my life when I was beating the literal shit out of myself to be a better person. She's like, dude, man, you're harder on yourself than God would ever be. Like, chill. God loves you. Stop trying so hard. Yeah. Austin says, and no one has ever done something that bad to me. Maybe I feel that the less people I have in my life, the more power I have. I know it's not messed up, bro. Nobody's gonna have 100 close friends. You're gonna have like three. And I don't know how old some of you guys are, so if you're in your 20s, you're still kind of figuring this out. Um, or if you're in your 60s, sometimes you're still figuring it out. Doesn't matter. But the point is, it's none of us are going to have hundreds of tight knit inner circle friends. You're going to have like three. If I don't include blood family, I've got like six. It's not a big circle. Because you're just not going to find, like, I have people in my life that I cherish, but they're not in my circle of trust, know everything about me. You know what I mean? Like, it takes work to get in there. Yeah, no worries, Halston. Glad to share with you, man. I'm glad it was helpful for you. Andrew says, can you give an example of detailing what you want? Like for your wife, for example. Did you go to the she'll have Yep. I wanted to one, we had to have the same values, same faith in God, if you want to call it that. Um I got specific all the way down to the way I wanted her voice to sound. I got that specific. So yep, as absurd as that sounds, be as specific as you can possibly. I wrote down what I wanted her to look like, what I wanted her to sound like, the type of personality. She could never be emotionally abusive because I dealt with that in my family growing up. There were a lot of traits, like a lot of it was what I wanted, but a lot of it was also here's what I won't accept. Because you need to have a list of what wants, but you need to also have a list of these are things that are non-negotiable. If she's nagging or if she's, emotionally just manipulative or abusive, never going to work. Dark Dally says, I think people feel entitled to get offended these days. Yeah, there's a high level of narcissism correlated with the amount with outrage culture. People that are outraged all the time and offended, and you said this, you're supposed to, like, I'm a disabled person, but you're supposed to say differently abled or it's offensive. You're a narcissist, dude. Come on. Like, nobody's trying to offend you. And are you so insecure about, like, I'm not insecure about the fact that I have disabilities, that I have to call them something softer because my emotions are going to be hurt. They're not. I have disabilities, bruh. What do you want me to say? I'm not ashamed of them. I earned these bitches. You kidding me? I earned. I got the scars I earned these disabilities, badges of honor. You know what I mean? I don't need to look at it as, oh, you're making me feel it's negative. It's not negative. I have disabilities, bro. There's things I can't do anymore physically. Not allowed. I can't do squats anymore. How about that? One of my favorite lifts. It's over. It's done. Because of my disabilities. But if I don't say differently abled instead of disabled, it's offensive. No, hear me out. If someone comes to me that I have some level of acquaintance with, and they prefer to be called differently able all day long, I'll call you that if that's what you need. But I'm not going to be told that's what I have to say or it's offensive. And the narcissism and self entitlement that goes into even being able to form your lips to say that nonsense to somebody when they're not even talking to you or about you. Yeah, it's definitely correlated with narcissism. There's a crazy level of entitlement that this new culture of overly progressive thinking. It's and honestly, I want to talk to Jordan Peterson about this. I want to have him on my show because he talks about it a ton, and I have an idea for why it's become this way, especially with the younger progressives. I think there's a crazy kind of perfect storm that happened with these 20 to younger 30 somethings, that there's this kind of cocktail of events that's transpired over the last 15 years that's just led to this kind of, because I think the narcissism isn't this intentional evilness, it's a defense mechanism. God, I want to talk to Jordan about it so bad. Like, whenever he gets back into the game, I'm like, I got to figure out how to get him on my show. I'll pay him. I don't care. I'll pay for that conversation. Like, how much I got to pay you to talk to you for 15 minutes? Name your price. Um, but yeah, I'm not attributing narcissism in some they're evil and they need to be dealt with. I think that some of it is experiential, and it's, all of our negative traits in some way, shape, or form are preservation behaviors. If you're Machiavellian or manipulative, people who are highly manipulative, I can usually predict with a good amount of accuracy that they've been abused. They learn to manipulate their environment to stave off abuse. It's not always that they're inherently evil. It's that they've encountered something that's caused them a great deal of pain, and the overwhelming focus on self or the overwhelming need to manipulate and control is born out of that pain. It's not always that they're bad people. Right? That's why you don't hear me like I badmouth behaviors all the time, but I try, at least I hope I do a decent job. I don't badmouth the people committing them because I'm no better than they are. I got my own crazy. Trust me. So, but that's a good point. Josh Quinn says, good point. In fact, I find that what I find attractive in women has changed over time. Dark Dally says, I find myself not able to have friends. And since you mentioned it, I'm 39. I have, yeah, maybe 3 friends. That's how many you're supposed to have. Yeah, man. You're supposed to have like 3 friends. You're good. You won the lottery. And one of the other things I was planning to teach in that marriage program that I ran as kind of a beta test and then shut down years ago, because just no one was interested in it. Well, not no one. There's a handful of people that joined it, but it was how do you actually search for friends? Like I did a podcast recently about how to make friends as an adult because it's harder when you're an adult. If you're in your 30s, it's harder to make friends when you're that age. Or even some of the people I coach are older than that. They're in their 40s and 50s, or in some cases 60s. I've coached people in their 60s. I don't think I've coached any 70 plus folks yet. I've definitely coached people in their 60s, and it's tough. It's definitely tough. Andrew says, I'm trying to fight that need to control right now with my therapist. It's really messed up. Some good relationships, and I have a lot of regret. Yeah. The good thing is you're aware of it. And now you can work through the regret and you can turn those regrets into, okay, I never have to do that again. So the regrets become a silver lining that I've learned something valuable from this and I can carry it with me. See, Alyssa says, I hate how entitled society is. I sometimes miss my naive mind some days. Yeah, me too. I'm just working the world easier for me to live in, but still hope Jesus returns or the aliens come back for me. I know that feeling very well. Cool. This is a great chat, y'all. Any more questions? Anybody? I want to take care of people that have questions, and by all means, keep chatting. I'm happy to continue to facilitate this discussion, but I definitely want to take care of people that have questions as well. So tomorrow's Wednesday, right, gang? Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. That's gonna be cutting it close. Hippie says, "Is it bad that I sometimes find myself wanting to be with a toxic friend than alone?" What do you think? Do you think it's bad that you'd rather be with someone toxic than alone? And really, you'll find the answer to that question by asking yourself, why would you prefer to be with someone toxic than alone? What is, because if you're willing to be with someone toxic rather than be alone, what is that toxic person is bringing something good to the table. It's not all bad because you're willing to deal with the toxicity to get something good. Figure out what that something good is that they bring to the table and then go find that trait in someone who's not toxic. So worrying about whether that's good or bad that's irrelevant, whether it's good or bad. Who cares? The bottom line is you're getting something good out of this toxic relationship. Right? It's like people with drug addictions. They're getting something good out of it, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. It's meeting some emotional need or filling an emotional void that they have, even though it might, heroin might be killing them, but they're getting something good out of it, otherwise they wouldn't keep going back to heroin. And so once you figure out what is that good thing that I'm getting from the heroin and where can I find that good thing in something less destructive, don't worry about who cares if it's good or bad. The bottom line is you don't want to be alone. That's what it means to be human. No human wants to be alone. So instead of worrying about whether that's good or bad, go find something with the qualities, the good qualities, and that lacks the toxicity. Well, it's like Marcus Aurelius said, never busy your mind with trifling things. And that's one of the things, it's another thing that I built these coaching programs to help you guys is start thinking the right thoughts. Start asking the right questions. And it's nothing, you're not doing anything wrong. You got to be taught this stuff, man. And they don't teach it to us. Just don't teach it. Let's see. Schmiggity or Smigetti says, "What's up, man? I got a question. I'm a more emotional, softer guy. And with the girl I'm seeing, not dating yet, I sometimes feel like that part is coming off too strongly. I guess I'm anxious about losing out on this relationship. If you were to ask me, what do you think? Like you just did, I think I'd say, fuck it, be myself. Yes, but that's tough to stave off those thoughts. Well, I mean, here's the deal. And this is what I used to teach young dudes, even when I was a real young dude. If a woman likes you, she likes you. And so, watch, I have videos on the cognitive biases, and one of them is the liking bias. If someone genuinely likes you, they're going to find more things right with you than wrong with you. Meaning, in some ways, they're going to justify things about you that may even seem not so great. Right? But if she doesn't like you, it doesn't matter whether you're too soft, too hard, or too anything. It's she doesn't like you, she's going to find something to not like about you. So don't worry about trying to cross all the T's. And this is something that I used to deal with a lot with the Myers-Briggs. People like, I'm trying to date. Stop. Like, be yourself. 100%. And if the woman or the man likes you, great. If they don't, great. You win either way. There's 4 billion women plus on the planet. You will find another one. Believe me. Don't play the game of, oh my God, I'm going to miss out. You're not going to, it's going to be fine. And if you miss out, you probably needed to miss out. Math is in your favor. See, Dark Dally says, Bryant, what if you prefer to be alone and don't want a relationship? Or do I just think I don't want one? It's been like 15 years since I had one. Yeah, maybe you don't. So that's Spaghetti says, thanks, my man. That's super helpful. Excellent, brother. Glad to hear it. Um, yeah, man. Then you just might not want to be in a relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that don't want to be in relationships. And I think where some of you want to go in terms of success in every area of your life, you need to be prepared for some level of loneliness. Remarking on what Alyssa just said, it's lonely for people. For winners, the winner circle is a lonely place, and I'll tell you a practical example of that. The best sport that communicates success in life is running track and field, and I'll tell you why. Because in track and field, you are on a team, but at the end of the day, only the winners go to the big competitions at the end of the season. Meaning your whole team is not going to be like I only ran track 1 year, and it was because I did some freak of nature thing. I didn't even know how to do long jump and triple jump, but screwing around in gym class, like I jumped close to the record for our high school in long jump. So they were like, "Yeah, get him over here." Just screwing around. I didn't know how to do it. So they coached me, they kind of gave me a crash course on how to do it. And so I was really competitive just on my sheer athleticism. No technique, just sheer athleticism. I was able to be competitive at my level. I made it all the way to the regional competition where the competition got really, really stiff and I just couldn't get over that hump. If I'd had, 4 years of training, I probably would have been way more competitive. But I remember that bus ride. It was me and my friend Jessica were the only ones on the bus because we were the only ones that competed at a high enough level to get to that competition. In the beginning of the season, we had 2 buses and the whole team was just going to these meets where you do this event and that event and this event and that event. By the end of the year, it's 2 kids on a bus riding together, and it's the sacrifices you have to make to be ultimately successful in every area of your life. You're going to pull away from people who aren't willing to make those sacrifices, and it's going to feel lonely, but that's okay. Like being lonely isn't always a bad thing. I mean, you don't want to stay there, you know. But it's also just being alone, which is different than being lonely. It's just you're at the top, And imagine what the bus ride was like, because my friend Jessica went all the way to the state championship, so she was on the bus by herself by the end, right? And so you're alone when you're at the top, man. There's not a lot of people who are willing to put in the blood to get there, and I think you all need to be prepared for that. Hippie Mo, are you talking to Dark Dally or me about David Goggins? 20 hours a day, man. That's gangster. There's a Mob Deep lyric that says this exact same thing. Walking with your head down, scared to look. You shook, 'cause ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. Oh, okay. Got you, Hip. Cool. All right, last call for question, gang. And I'm gonna get up out of here. What do you guys think? Should I do an after party on Twitch? Should we continue the hang over on Twitchers? That's a good point, reading Dave. Well said. Dark Dally says, "Well, I'm a gaming YouTuber, and a new game just came out. I don't have anything here, so I just crash like 3 hours a night in my chair, and then back to gaming." Hey, man, that's sacrifice, bro. That's gonna pay off at some point. Just don't neglect your sleep for too long, bro. You gotta sleep. Last call for questions. All right, so Suba says absolutely to doing a live stream after this. Okay. I might stream for a little bit so I can wind down. Andrew says, sure, I'll see you over there. Okay. Houston says, thank you for taking the time, B. I appreciate the knowledge. I appreciate you guys, man. I learned too, man. Hippie Mo says, same, same. All right, cool. Reading Dave says, thanks for tonight. Thank you, Dave. You guys and ladies are awesome, man. I really appreciate you. All right, so the next question is, should I play more Red Dead Redemption 2? Or I was playing Final Fantasy 12, but nobody wants to watch that. At least not according to my Twitch numbers. All right, cool. Looks like we don't have any questions. If any of you are in the middle of typing a question, just copy it and paste it in an email to me at contact@brianchambers.com. Just shoot it to me in an email, and I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube. We'll be covering. So next week we'll be covering agreeableness, which I think you'll find very interesting. We'll dive more into relationships next week, because I think what a lot of people have misconstrued for personality differences can be found in a lack of one of these facets in particular, I believe. And I don't have any science to back this up yet, so this is just my intuition at work at this point. But I think one of these facets in particular that we're going to cover next week is one of the major reasons why so many relationships get strained. And if you can work to develop it, I think regardless of what your typing is, you can find success in any type of relationship, not just romantic. So next week, same bad time, same bad channel. We'll talk about agreeableness, forgiveness, gentleness, flexibility, and patience. And then let's see, Andrew says, remember to be 15 prior to the 15 prior. Early's on time, man. I can dig it. Reminder, if you want to get access to tonight's coaching and coaching a lot like it, hundreds of hours of coaching, a lot like this one, and even more valuable, go ahead and click on the link in the description for the Good Life Playbook. All you got to do is just at the bottom, read about the whole thing, all the benefits that you get, and there's more to come, because we're still building stuff like this program right here that you're a part of, right? All you do is read through it at the bottom of the page, put your email in and submit it. You'll immediately get an email from me that says, hey, if you're in, respond to this email, let me know you're in. As soon as you do that, I will send you the sign up email. You'll fill out the thing, submit it. I'll get notification as soon as that happens and immediately get you access to the private coaching, the private Facebook group. And then you'll also have access to me via email. Something I'm working with my VIPs right now is actually giving out my cell phone so that we can text back and forth, right? Because a lot of people want to move towards texting and not just emailing. Because I know a lot, especially a lot of the younger folks, like, dude, I never read email. I'd rather, like, I remember like young dudes sending me 3-page Snapchats. Like, did you two finger type this? But that's the way they're comfortable. So I thought that was crazy. I don't have the patience to 2-finger tap that much text. But bottom line is, my VIPs in the Good Life Playbook now have access to, they can actually text me on my phone and we can have conversations that way. That's something I'm considering opening up to the Good Life Playbook as well as we continue. That's one of the other reasons why I'm probably going to keep the memberships tight. So I'm not getting a billion text messages all night, every night. But it's just another thing that I'm trying to add more connectivity to you all. So it's not just this, you give your money into the ether every month and then, we're just shatting out lessons. Like, no, there's actually connection here. There's questions and answers. People have hit me up with ideas for the podcast. One guy even hit me up and says, hey, I want to get some more conversation going in the private group. Can I have your permission to blah, blah, blah? Like, absolutely. So it'll just be another avenue for us to communicate with each other in a way that I think is a lot more effective than email or even communicating on social media can be tough. Right? So consider that. Dark Dowley says live stream gameplay of Shrek 2. That's how you bring in the views. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Shrek 2. I think we'll play some more Red Dead Redemption 2. So far, that game's okay. It's not lighting my world on fire, but it also isn't making me want to club baby seals. So, win-win. Anyway, I love you guys as always. Remember that we are stronger than I, and I'll see a bunch of you over on Twitch, and the rest of you, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.